Palermo. Festerson. Harding. Jerem.
Here.
Melton. Pauls. Mr. President.
Here. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing today for our invocation by Councilmember Benny Palermo. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Another wonderful day in the city, another city council meeting, but not without our continued thoughts and prayers for those that are not with us today. I know, God willing, as we continue to work and be proactive as a council and a city, we will continue to move forward. And with the crowd I see here today, we should move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this city council meeting. Council thanks you for being here this afternoon, and as a courtesy to those in attendance, we would ask you to turn off or mute any of your electronic devices. Madam Clerk.
Item 6, presentation by Mayor Gene Stothert of the 2019 recommended budget.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon, everybody. President Gray, City Council members, and citizens of Omaha. It is an honor to present our recommended 2019 budget and our 6-year capital improvement program. The preparation and analysis that goes into these two documents is considerable. For dozens of staff and department leaders, budget preparation is a year-round effort. The end results are much more than words and numbers on a piece of paper. These documents reflect the priorities of our city and how we connect and serve our citizens. It is our responsibility to provide the services and programs that support their safety and quality of life. So thank you to each council member for the help that you've given us in developing and preparing this budget. I appreciate your suggestions. The 2019 general fund budget highlights are as follows: a modest 3.5% budget increase compared to 2018, maintaining our lower property tax rate, financial benefit from previous year's surplus, reserves and contingency funds are at the highest level in history, and strong funding increases to address our most important priorities. This is my 6th recommended budget since I've been honored to serve as mayor. During this time, we have been able to fund our priorities and to contribute to the overall growth, stability, and safety of our city. Our transparent and strategic approach to budgeting has resulted in 5 years of significant year-end balances, high savings account reserves, lower property tax rates, and efficiencies at how we manage all of our resources. Omaha's well-managed finances will allow us to meet the pressing needs in the year ahead, and with the goal of making Omaha better and stronger. In addition to our general fund budget, we are required by the city charter to plan for upcoming capital expenses for the next 6 years. These are long-term major investments for public safety, streets, parks, public facilities, and also our sewer system. As proposed, our capital improvement program will total nearly $2 billion, and it will impact every citizen in Omaha. The benefits to Omaha by continuing sensible, long-term investments through our capital improvement plan are clear. This important work will continue without delay, thanks to voter support of our 5 bond issues that were passed just in May. I believe that this is a reflection of strong public support for our financial and budget track record. And we will keep our commitment to the taxpayers to pay off all of these bonds without a tax increase, something we can do as older bonds are retired and through careful expense management. I believe we all agree that our most important priorities are public safety and street repair. Our budget increases the police and fire department by 4.5% and 3.4% respectively, and provides for these important enhancements. Funding for over 900 police officers, up from 880 this year. Equipment, officers, and staff for our newest West Police Precinct in Elkhorn that is scheduled to be opened about a year from now. 36 new SUVs for our police fleet, 1 additional deputy police chief position, and thanks largely to private donors, we will increase the number of body-worn cameras to 575. In the fire department, the number of sworn firefighters will remain at 658, while the capital budget provides for new fire apparatus, equipment, and replacing 2 new fire stations. The first of the stations, Station 31 in South Omaha, could start as early as next year. In addition to public safety, road construction and maintenance remains one of our top priorities. Next year, we will propose adding another $500,000 to the street resurfacing budget, resulting in the highest level of funding ever planned through the annual budget process. In addition, the CIP includes $328 million in funding for important transportation projects, many of which will start next year. We will add 6 public works employees for snow removal and road repair, and 8 employees in the sewer maintenance division. This will increase our ability to proactively inspect and maintain our 2,000 miles of sewer that we have in the city of Omaha. A team specializing in median maintenance will also be formed. And work continues to reduce the overall cost of our massive federally mandated sewer separation project. Our Parks Department programs and facilities will continue next year as they do today. We also have significant funds in the CIP for parks. Much of that is due to one incredibly exciting project that I will touch on in just a moment. Our Parks Director and community partners have done a tremendous job engaging the donor community in Omaha. Nearly $5 million has been committed to improve our city's facilities. This will happen at very special places next year, like the Carrie Orozco Memorial Ball Field at Miller Park, the Levi Carter Park Playground, and Memorial Park's military service memorials. Funding for library operations will increase by 2.5%, and we are, of course, very excited about 2 new library facilities that are in our capital improvement plan. One is a replacement for our main branch downtown, our main library downtown, and the other is for a new 13th library in southwest Omaha. Among the other notable and significant expenses in the 2019 budget is an expected increase of 9.5% in health care costs for our employees and retirees. A total of approximately $68 million is budgeted for health care in 2019. We have also included over $7 million in the wage adjustment account for salary changes when we successfully negotiate the civilian contract. The community service programs that we will support are funded in next year's budget at a level similar to last year, and that is $6.5 million. Over 20 organizations will receive community service funding so that they can positively impact job training and workforce support, public safety programs, economic development, and neighborhood projects. Omaha has 2 primary sources of revenue to fund our general fund budget, notably sales tax and property tax, and we always very cautiously predict the revenues for next year. We anticipate property tax revenue will increase by just over 4% compared to 2018. And we expect sales tax to increase just above 5% for 2019. Following the recent decision by the United States Supreme Court on retailers may be required to collect sales tax, our estimate in sales tax includes a small increase, assuming the state of Nebraska will adopt this change. I support the change in state law because I believe it will make our sales tax collection policy more clear and easier to comply with. It will also level the playing field for those who take the risk of operating brick and mortar businesses and retail stores. Last month, we announced a project that will have a significant and lasting impact on Omaha and the quality of life for all of our citizens. It will also have an impact on our capital budget. The Riverfront Revitalization Project will be transformational. In the next few years, we will see a sprawling new park in downtown Omaha, beautiful and lasting improvements to our Jean Leahy Mall, Heartland of America Park, and the Lewis and Clark Landing. I believe that this will be one of the most significant projects and public-private partnerships in the history of Omaha. It will spur development, grow our economy, create jobs, and enhance recreation and event opportunities. We will draw new employers and appeal to their new employees, many of whom are part of the younger workforce and are drawn to urban living and work. The entire project will cost an estimated $290 million, and we have provided for this project in the capital improvement plan. Private donors will fund about 80% of this project. The city will contribute $50 million with lease purchase bonds that will be issued over the next 3 years, and it will not result in a tax increase. We are very, very fortunate in Omaha to have a high level of private support for many of our most important landmarks and programs. I would like to thank the project leaders for their generous vision. The Riverfront project reflects that generosity, the beauty of the riverfront, and the faith in Omaha's future. It will be Omaha's new, impressive signature, and I can't wait to enjoy it and bring my grandchildren there to enjoy it too. Finally, the draft capital improvement plan and recommended budget have been posted on the City of Omaha's website today, and I encourage citizens to review both. I want to thank you again for the citizens of Omaha. I want to thank you. I hear from you every single day on issues that are important to you. A public hearing on our proposed budget will be held in this chamber July 31st at 6:30 p.m., and I encourage you to attend and to provide all of your feedback. We work very, very hard to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars while providing excellent city services. Spending the taxpayers' money is an enormous responsibility, and doing it right every time is very important to me. I look forward to the Council's approval of the 2019 budget and the capital improvement program. Thank you all.
All right. Let's let them get out a little bit. Madam.
Item 7, a vote on the reconsideration of Resolution 445, a special use permit for Leslie Salvage, Inc. to allow scrap and salvage services in a GI district for property located at 6202 Orchard Avenue. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. B is documentation received from Dwayne Dowd. And the motion and the second were captured at the July 10th meeting. So it's just the vote.
Just a vote.
On the reconsideration.
Roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Festerson.
Yes.
Harding.
No.
Jerem.
No.
Melton.
No.
Pauls. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion fails 4-3. Item 8, an application to consider a Class C liquor license for Candyland LLC, doing business as Candyland, located at 7215 Blondo Street. A is communication in opposition.
The public hearing on agenda item number 8 is today. Before we begin the discussion, I know that there are a number of people here that might want to speak. I would encourage you, if you would, we have a light system, but I would prefer not to use it if we don't have to. What I would like to do is have, if you hear someone say something that you have already said, that has already been said, you don't need to get up and say it. That we do have documents in the back where if you don't want to speak but you want to sign a letter in opposition, you can certainly do that. And so with that, I would encourage you to, if you have some spokespersons who would like to speak, we'd like to get them up. And then we will kind of go from there, but hopefully we won't have to take a whole lot of time with this, and we can get through this fairly quickly, given the extent of this issue that we face. So with that, we'll begin the public hearing, and we'll start with proponents or those who are in favor of item number 8. Those who are in favor.
This is the applicant.
The applicant, do you need to say, did you want to, it's your turn to speak at this point.
Okay. First, I want to get the record straight. There's a lot of misinformation out there.
Name and address for the record, please.
Raymond Kurtzuba, 9354 Corby Street, Omaha.
Thank you.
Okay. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Number one, I don't own a hookah bar. Years ago, 20 years ago or so, I was a partner in a college nightclub called the Orange Weasel. It was not a strip club, as been reported. Also, one of my partners was on the city council. What we're trying to do over there at Candyland is to show that we can have adult entertainment without nudity. To my knowledge, there's 2 establishments in Omaha that offer adult entertainment. One is a total nude club, and the other one allows their females to take their tops off and put pasties on. We're not going to allow any of that. We're going to serve food at all hours of operation. Our females are going to be dancers. We are following all the statutes and codes established by the city and the state. It's zoned accordingly. Schools, daycares in the neighborhood are all outside the exclusion area set by the statute. There are no windows in the building, so nobody can see from the street what's inside of there. We don't share parking with any other property there. There is a drive that you can enter all 3 parking lots, but we have our own private lot. Also, another thing, I do hold a liquor license that I've had for 7 years. 7 years ago, I came here before the city council and applied for a license, which we were granted. And the issue of DUI convictions that I had came up at that time, which at that time they were 10 years old. I had quit drinking at that time after my second DUI, and I was applauded by the city council. And now we're nearly 20 years after that, and I'm still not a drinker. We're not looking to make any neighbors upset. We want to be a good neighbor to everybody. One of the things that we're doing there is we're enforcing a dress code, try to keep some of the lower level people from coming in there. We have security that monitors not only the safety of customers, but also they're responsible to make sure that patrons are not in there getting intoxicated. And at the end of the evening, they're going to remain in our parking lot and make sure that every car has left and nobody is loitering around the property. I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about it. And, the name has apparently offended some people, and the way that the name was come up with was not after a board game, not after chocolate or gumdrops or anything like that. It was named after a young lady that I know. We were brainstorming for names, and she said my name, Ray's Club, and I said Candy's Club, which is her name, and she said Candyland, and that's how we came up to it. And like I said, I don't want to offend anybody, don't want the name, don't want kids to think that that's a place to get candy. They're not going to see anything going inside of in or out of there. There's a rear entrance for employees, but they're going to be fully dressed. But if it makes everybody happy, a little bit, we're willing to change the name. I've decided that, if we get a vote of yes, we will change the name to Candies, which is spelled Kandis, and that would be the only thing on our signage, except that it would say food, drink, and entertainment.
Is that your testimony? You will have a chance for rebuttal after those who are in opposition get a chance to testify. You'll get a chance for rebuttal. So, thank you. Are there anybody else in favor of this application? Anyone in favor? Those who are opposed to this application, those in opposition. Again, a show of hands of those who are in attendance who are opposed to this liquor license. How many of you want to testify? Thank you. Just three. Okay, thank you.
My name is Dan Arcuri. I own Danny's Bar and Grill on 72nd and Blondo. For the history, this place has had a liquor license for the last 40 years. No complaint about having a liquor license. It's always had one. Let them have another one. It's what's going to take place inside the liquor license is what has to be concerned. I'm concerned that we're going to have a bunch of females, which is fine, dressed in bikinis, dressed in lingerie, which is going to draw kind of most of the time, a kind of strange crowd. And all of a sudden you end up having out in the parking lot, which the gentleman may not know what's going on, I don't know. But out in the parking lot, you're going to sell dope. Eventually you might have a fight. Kind of the same scenarios that went on down at the old market. Everybody thought it was a great place. Until the last couple of years, we've had problems down there. Possibility here because of the element that it's going to draw. You know, they say bikini bars, okay? What does a bikini mean? I've seen bikinis in Florida where you have a line going up the backside, a patch on the front, and two things on the girls. Is that a bikini? To me, it's not a bikini. It's not something I'd take my kids to the swimming hole with. And I ask you, if you wouldn't go here, would you go here and enjoy it? If you wouldn't, then why would you vote for it? It's not a place we need in a neighborhood. If you want to do something like that, you go downtown, you go down to Carter Lake, you do all the places, but you don't do it in a neighborhood. And this is a neighborhood environment. I've been on that corner for 37 years, and we've not had zero problems up there because we keep it a clean area. We don't need to. What are you going to draw in here? Is it going to enhance the area? I don't think so. You got a man here that has no skin in the game. He doesn't own the building. He's going to rent it. When you walk away, you leave the reputation behind you, and then we have to clean it up and deal with it. It's not going to hurt my business to begin with, but what happens when the reputation gets there a year later down the line? Then I have to lose business because people are afraid to come in the area. Why? There's no reason to do it. There's other places in Omaha. Go rent another place somewhere else in a business area, not in a neighborhood area. If you have any questions, I'd like to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any other opponents who wish to be heard? Welcome, Senator. If anybody else that wants to speak, if you can move down to the front, please, we'd appreciate it.
Good afternoon, President Gray and fellow council members. My name is Senator Teresa Thibodeau. I live at 12811 Izzard Street, Omaha. I represent Legislative District 6. That is the district in which this establishment will be opening. I wanted to come down here on behalf of the other businesses in my district and talk a little bit about the impact I think this could have on other businesses. For instance, there are 4 early learning development centers in this area. I am also an owner of an early childhood center, and knowing the parents that bring their children to these centers, they are not going to want to drive by this establishment twice a day. And so therefore, they could end up pulling their child from the daycare center that they are currently enrolled. That could have an impact on jobs. Owners could have to lay off teachers. Owners would definitely lose revenue. And again, it goes towards losing that access to early childhood development, which is so important. It is also close to a grade school as well. And although none of these areas are within the 500 feet, they are very close, and you are passing by this establishment every day. Second, as a small business owner myself, when you are looking to open a business, I think you should, look at the market that you're opening in. Talk to your neighbors. See if this is a place, see if the business you're opening is what the area around you wants. So my suggestion, I guess, would be is, judging from the amount of people in this room, if he were to change his business model to a family-friendly restaurant, he actually might make a good profit. So that'd be my unsolicited advice. But with the impact on the business, I guess I would ask the council not to recommend a liquor license to the Liquor Commission. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else in opposition that wish to speak?
My name is Mary Bourgeois. I live on 7637 Springfield Drive. I live seriously right around the corner from this place. I know what he's talking about. I grew up in the area. I know this area. When Dairy Queen is overfilled, because believe me, it's right next to Dairy Queen and right next to Burger King, and oh yeah, there's McDonald's across the street. So when Dairy Queen gets overfilled, everybody parks what used to be Mount Fuji Inn, and they just park their car at Mount Fuji and walk over to Dairy Queen, because we all know that line at Dairy Queen goes out on 72nd and Blondo. Did I mention there's Dairy Queen right next door to it? Burger King and McDonald's right across the street. And then you got Danny's, which is a family bar. So people run that light there. They just do it all the time. They just do it. It's a little crazy to have this establishment in a neighborhood right down the street from a school, right down the street from another school. A high school is not even a half-mile away. Are you kidding me?
Thank you. Any other opponents who wish to be heard?
Good afternoon. My name is Corey Sepich. I'm the principal at St. Pius St. Leo, 6905 Blondo Street, Omaha. I have just a little something prepared here. It says, just honorable members of the City Council, thank you so much for your willingness to meet with us and to listen to our concerns on the proposed Candyland Bikini Bar and their attempts to seek a liquor license at 72nd and Blondo. It is my concern, and that of many of our stakeholders, I would say all of our stakeholders, that I represent, that the Candyland Bikini Bar will have a detrimental impact not only on our community through decreasing property values in that Benson community, but also to our recruitment efforts to bring families to our school. We are one of the more diverse school communities in the Omaha area, and that's not just private schools. Our school celebrates as one of its major strengths the fact that we have many families from a variety of different backgrounds, both in nationalities and socioeconomically. A unique aspect of our school is that we draw from all over Omaha. As families from West Omaha, Millard, Gretna, Elkhorn, Bennington, and Western Iowa send their students to our school because of what our community stands for and who we serve. I think having a bikini bar, unfortunately named Candyland, which is, if it's not intended purposes, is a beloved and well-known kids and family board game, will impact our ability to recruit in a negative manner. The proposed Candyland bar will not only cause our young kids to pay attention and ask questions due to the name and their natural curiosities, but it will also draw on our older students and their attentions as well. We live in a highly sexualized culture, and this culture is proving to be a major concern for educators, especially when it comes to mental health issues in our youth. I am scared for our students and the impact that it will have on their well-being, as well as because we already face these challenges and everything that our students are exposed to. The safety of our students is our largest priority, and our families entrust us with the safety of their most precious gifts, which is their children. Our students walk to and from schools in the neighborhood surrounding 72nd and Blondo. We're just, I think, about 800 and 900 feet from the proximity. So our students walk to and from those areas at 72nd and Blondo, walk every morning and afternoon to and from Creighton Prep, crossing 72nd and Blondo for classes. And as was mentioned, frequent the markets, Dairy Queen, and McDonald's on 72nd and Blondo. Parents who are looking for a school will think long and hard about joining the St. Pius X St. Leo community, and the economic detriment will gravely impact our ability to produce our greatest gift to our community and economy of producing caring, kind, and responsible citizens. More importantly, I would ask Mr. Kurtzeba to reconsider his business plan, like Senator Thibodeau, for this location. I do want him to know that I'm not judging him because as a member of our school community and our parish communities, we pride ourselves on being loving, welcoming, and caring citizens. We've been a bedrock in this community since 1956, and we'll be starting our 63rd year as a school. This is a school community that has over 65,000 alumni and currently has upwards to 2,000 community members. So we do support our businesses in the area, and we're very proud of that as well. So we hope that Mr. Kurtzeba will reflect on our concerns, not as an indictment on him, but more so on the impact that it has on our students and our economic viability of a school, as a school and a business. So I do pray that he decides to change his establishment to one that the entire community can enjoy, and if so, I would welcome him to our community and his business, and the same caring and kind nature in which we pride ourselves in teaching our young students. So I would like to thank you, honorable members of the City Council, and I pray that you give a recommendation to the Nebraska Liquor Commission that takes into full consideration the negative impact this proposed establishment will have on our school community, the St. Pius X St. Leo family. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other opponents who wish to be heard?
Hello, Becky App, 1124 North Happy Hollow, 68132. Hello, I'm asking that the Omaha City Council deny the recommendation of a liquor license for Candyland. As a small business owner in the area, neighborhood homeowner, and the parent of 2 young children that go to the school within the area, I, like so many here, have a strong vested interest in this economic success at the 72nd and Blondo area. I believe, based on the past business practice history of the applicant and the proposed business model of Candyland, that the surrounding businesses and school will suffer economically if it is approved. My retail business is located in Dundee, just 2 miles away from the 72nd and Blondo intersection. Several years ago, our single street business district underwent a revitalization project. Thank you, Pete. With that, many have perceived very, very small, minor changes to the neighborhood in terms of atmosphere, new sidewalks, new benches. What may be perceived as minor actually resulted in a quantifiable increase in street traffic and sales for all of us merchants. It was a result of creating an atmosphere that was warm, welcoming, and safe that increased the traffic and sales for all of us to experience this success. I'm gravely concerned that the exact opposite will occur with the not-so-minor environmental changes we are discussing here today with the addition of a bikini bar. As we've heard today, the intersection is surrounded by many schools and parks: Prep, SPSL, 2 early childhood education centers, and Bowling Green Park and Fields. The park, which is just a half a block away, is the host to dozens of out-of-town families every College World Series for youth College World Series tournaments. As we also have heard, this facility would also share a parking lot with Dairy Queen and Burger King. This city has encouraged wonderful commercial improvements in this area, and with the recent addition of retail businesses in the space of the former Baker's Grocery, the new McDonald's, Family Dollar, and BP are well-landscaped, welcoming, and a match for the customer demographic of the area. Ironically, as a junior achievement volunteer at St. Pius St. Leo this year, our class actually researched this very intersection as an example of very effective city planning. The kids identified the target markets the existing businesses are currently successfully serving, such as Hoover Family Dental, their school, Prep, Dairy Queen, the new donut shop, on and on. We discussed the business basics of how similar businesses support each other by increasing the number of customers to the area. We talked about how the city planning and smart retail development were revitalizing this area and setting up these businesses for success. There are still 3 remaining open lots in this area. We're asking that you deny a liquor license to a bikini bar so that we can continue the success story for this Omaha area. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other opponents who wish to be heard? Yes, ma'am. If there are any others, I would encourage you to come to the front, please.
My name is Susan Drew. My address is 9812 Seward Street. Sorry I wasn't in front, but I needed to hear what was said. I understand you don't want to hear repeats, but my simple message is I'm a parent. My sons were involved with St. Pius St. Leo School for 13 years, and I now have a son who's moving on to Creighton Prep and a son who just graduated from Creighton Prep. My sons played at Bowling Green Park. My son has neighborhood boys who live very close to St. Pius St. Leo School, which is in that neighborhood, and I don't feel like this business is the right fit for the school-based neighborhood with all these family-friendly restaurants. So I ask you to consider that greatly. It's a very family-friendly place with kids running around, walking past. It doesn't belong there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, does the proponent wish any rebuttal time? You'd have a couple of minutes. Name and address for the record again.
Raymond Kurtzula, 9354 Corby Street.
Thank you.
First of all, Mount Fuji, and they were there for more than 40 years, and many, many people walked past it, kids walked past it, and I don't believe that any of them ever saw or even knew what was going on inside there. Like I said, there are no windows in the building. We don't have people entering and exiting with bikinis on. You know, you're going to see more bikinis at Funplex, which also has a liquor license, than there. As far as the distance goes, St. Pius is over the hill, 3 blocks away, well outside of the required area. Creighton Prep is closer to a mile away from us. I've leased the building from 3 partners, which were fine with our operation. I've talked to owners on each side of me, which were both fine with our operation as long as we operate it inside and were friendly and didn't have any problems over there, which everything I stated before. We have security to take care of any problems. Everybody's security screened. Everybody's has to leave the parking lot when business hours are closed. And I think that we deserve a vote in our favor.
Does that conclude your testimony?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think if it's okay, we do have one of the property owners that wanted to speak out.
Just very quickly, if one of the property owners.
Aaron.
I'll allow you just a couple of minutes, sir, because you were supposed to come down with the proponents.
Totally fine. I was not really prepared to say anything either, but wasn't really expecting this kind of pushback.
Name and
either.
address. Okay.
Aaron Heffley, 670 South 196th Avenue. Kind of addressing some of the, just like Ray had said as well, some of the opposition on this. The big thing, I guess, would be location-wise. Yes, it is located within a mile of Creighton Prep and within a few blocks of St. Pius, St. Leo. There is also another establishment not even 2 miles away from this location that has, I believe, been kind of the bane of the City Council's existence over the last year and a half, basically opposing or finding loopholes to every single thing that they can, not really opening or not operating a very upfront business. They're doing everything as hidden as they possibly can. This is the exact opposite of that. We had quite a few talks amongst myself and my other partners with Ray prior to even signing a lease with him to just make sure that what his plans were again within his full legal right to do so, that we're all within city statutes, that we're all outside of any of these boundaries set between daycare centers, schools, and the such that have been addressed, that have had concerns. Again, following all the rules that have been set within city statutes to be outside of those. Also, as far as parking goes, yes, we do have it's a private parking lot. There are 2 driveways that are connecting both Burger King and Dairy Queen. We have plans to put blockades there between those so that cars no longer pass between those. So that's not a shared parking lot, no matter what people say. It is privately owned, and it will remain that way. Also, the benefit of having an actual business there operating rather than having a vacant property. Who wants to see a vacant building sit somewhere for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? What does that do to a neighborhood if we're really talking about it? And at the end of the day, just like you said, it's a very, very plain, basic building. I don't know if you've seen pictures. I know there's been news stories that have had exterior pictures of the building. It has just gotten a fresh repaint, and it is as plain can be. It is gray all the way around the outside. It is parking. It is one entrance for the general public. That is a double door as well. So if there's any concern of even a kid trying to attempt to get in there, I'm assuming any kind of door staff would be there to promptly shuttle them out as quickly as possible. Not to mention the fact that there are other establishments within the area that do have liquor licenses as well. Maloney's is less than a block away. Danny's obviously across the street. I think we're all within full legal right. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. With that, we close the public hearing. Mr. Festerson.
Thanks, Mr. President, and I want to thank everyone who came today and provided testimony on this issue, and all those that have contacted me in the last few days. I can tell you that I've had easily over 100 emails and calls on this in just the last couple of days, and I think many other council members have too. So I do want to engage a little more in depth with Mr. Kurtsuba, if you will, on the description of the business and the business plan going forward. So I appreciate you kind of giving an overview there a few minutes ago. Talk to me a little bit more about how it will operate. You mentioned there would be food. I think it's lunch and happy hour type situations, but it's not like a restaurant, right?
Well, we have a full kitchen in there, and our plan is to see how the food goes, and if it goes well, we have room and all the facilities to expand on that. But we do plan on opening for a lunch and have a fuller menu throughout the rest of the day until happy hour. That'll be limited, and then happy hour again during those hours, dinner hours. There'll be a little larger menu available, but then through the course of the evening, rest of the evening, there will be a limited menu.
Okay. So lunch service, but then more snacks and food for the evening crowds that are probably coming to patron the bar.
Well, we're probably going to have burgers and wings and probably a lot of food similar to Danny's.
Okay. And then you mentioned your experience operating some other operations. I think it's West Lanes Bowling.
Yes, I mean, I've owned about 8 different businesses since the mid-'80s. Most well-known, probably Gentleman's Choice Formalware, which I opened in 1984. Operated that for 10 years, and we had a great customer service. I can say in the 10 years that I operated, I don't think that we ever disappointed anybody in their formalware needs. I've owned a limousine service and recording studio. I've owned partners in nightclub with one of the council members. I've owned tanning salons, and for the last 7 years have been a partner in the West Lanes Bowl, which was originally built by my father-in-law in 1955, and he sold the business in 1980, and it was leased out for 31 years by some other people that pretty much ran the business into the ground and lost the leaks. But over the last 7 years, we've built it back up, and we provide good entertainment for families there.
Okay. And I'm most interested in the ones that have liquor licenses, so that'd be West Lanes.
West Lanes has a liquor license. We've never had a violation there in 7 years.
And you also mentioned historically the Orange Weasel, I think. I know that was many years ago.
The Orange Weasel, you know, it had a bad rap because of one of our partners was on the council, so every time somebody turned around in there, it was in the newspaper. But honestly, we probably ran the most strict club in Omaha, where they were driving over people in parking lot out west, and we just didn't let anything like that kind of stuff happen in there. We had off-duty policemen for our security, and what was the end of the Orange Weasel is there was a young man that was shot in a drive-by over somewhere on Maple Street, and because we had off-duty officers in the lot, his friends drove him over to our lot. And then when it was reported, it made it sound like it happened at our club. So our partnership, we decided to kind of close down for a little while and rethink how we wanted to operate, and our partnership kind of broke up at that time.
Okay. And then you also mentioned some of your history with DUIs. I appreciate you observing that and
Yes.
talking about that. We do, of course, get those reports on any liquor license, and view them as an indication of responsible ownership and how that will be for people that have had some experience with law enforcement.
Sure.
I know that was many years ago, but it sounds like you've changed things around. Do you want to address that any further?
Yeah, like I said, the last time I was in front of the city council 7 years ago, that issue came up. The DUIs were about 10 years old at that time. I had quit drinking and was applauded by a few people because of that. And to this day still, I'm not a drinker. I don't drink.
Okay, so you can assure us you'd be a responsible owner in that
Yes.
respect. Tell me some more about what's listed here in terms of live entertainment. What would that be?
The live entertainment are going to be ladies dressed in bikinis, and they're not serving drinks. They'll just be on stage dancing, and we have no contact rules. You know, I know of one of these clubs in town. They're nude, and unfortunately, there's a cot in the back room that you can go back there with somebody, and we just don't have anything like that.
So there would be dancing on stage?
Yes.
So, to music or DJs?
To music, to a DJ, yes.
Okay. Promoters too, or other promotions outside the building for these events?
Are we going to promote outside the building? You know, there's a lot of interest in the place already, and I don't think we're going to need to do a lot of promotion. The people that want to come there are going to find out where we're at.
And although there is dancing on a stage, this is not, they will not be removing their clothes. There is no stripping
They're not
going
going to
on.
be removing their clothes. One other club, they allow the girls to take their tops off and wear pasties over their breast, and we're not going to allow anything like that. Also, the law allows us to hire and employ people at the age of 19 and above, but we're putting the bar up to 21 years old. We're not going to allow any minors to come in the place or work there.
And what type of security would you have to assure those things?
We're going to probably have, during the lunch hour time, 2 security people, but through the night we'll have 4 or 5 people that are going to watch the crowds, ID and security check everybody that comes in, and everything will be video monitored and recorded.
Okay. Now, being familiar with Mount Fuji as a landmark, as a restaurant, and of course the historic kind of Mai Tai lounge there in the basement, I'm familiar with the layouts of the operation here. Do you anticipate renovations to the building at all?
There's not a lot we have to do in the place. You know, back in the 60s, it was called the Porpoise Palace, and they actually had a swimming pool on the main level, and they had porpoise and a young lady swimming with the porpoise. And then the floor has been built over into different tiers, but like I said, we don't have to do a lot in there. The basement lounge, we just want to kind of refreshen it up, straighten up the bar, redo that, paint the walls, and put carpet on the floor. But also, one of the owners of the property said he can get us the menu from the old Mai Tai lounge, and we plan on serving those drinks down there again.
So the basement is still a lounge. It's the upper floor that would have the stage.
Right.
And the upper floor also had some pretty private rooms for dinner parties at the time. How would that be handled going forward on this?
There's no private rooms up there now.
Okay.
Everything's open.
No more sliding doors?
No, that's all been taken out.
Okay. As many have observed, this is also very near. I think it's 12 other liquor licenses, 5 schools, Bowling Green Park. We've heard from all the schools here and over the last few days, Creighton Prep, St. Pius, Westbrook, and Hillside Elementaries. It's a correct observation to say those are outside the 500-foot zone that we do look for, but not by far. Bowling Green Park, for example, is about 556 feet, I think it is. So I think it's a viable observation opponents have, that this is very close to many schools and recreational entities and parks and other businesses that attract younger folks when they express that concern. Tell me some more about the name change you mentioned. I think that is a concern to people as well.
Well, like I said, we want to be a good neighbor. We don't want to offend anybody. It's not named after Candy. It was named after a young lady, so we're willing to change the name to Candy, spelled K-A-N-D-I-S. And the only other thing the sign would have on it is food, drink, and entertainment. We're not going to advertise exotic dancers or anything like that on there.
Is it a new sign, or is there
It'll be a new sign, yes.
Okay. Okay. Which would have to have its own permits and all those things.
Right. The owners have been working on that right now.
So maybe a question for Madam Clerk. So the application here is by Candyland LLC doing business as Candyland. Would a name change require a change to the application at this point?
It would require an amendment to the application.
Okay. Which we can do or the applicant can do?
You can approve the amendment.
Okay. And that's an amendment you would support?
Yes.
Okay, I want to put that out there for other council members who may be thinking about that situation. A few more observations, but I think I'm done with questions if you want to sit down for now. I think as we all know, ultimately in the city, the State Liquor Commission is the entity that decides liquor licenses, but does seek the recommendations of local city councils across the state. And that's the case here too. I will observe, though, that the council did deny a liquor license application not far from here, just a few blocks down the street at 80th and Blondo, when a proposed convenience store was coming in, and it is going in, next to the No Frills supermarket area that's being renovated now and remarketed. We had lots of concerns about that at the time. One of which is the promise that holds that renovation for the old No Frills supermarket renovation and what can be now attracted there in terms of new businesses. But also because of the sensitivity of the area, many apartments right across the street, trash and litter in the community, all those kind of things really led us to have concern about offering that liquor license there, in particular single sales and some of the issues you had with that. So the council, I believe it was unanimous at the time, recommended denial, and that went to the State Liquor Commission and was represented by the city. Eventually, through the court system, that liquor license was granted. but it was granted with restrictions. So I think it's an example of how we can exercise our opinion and authority to influence these matters to a more positive outcome for a neighborhood, working with the Penny Park Association there and the Benson Gardens Neighborhood Association there as an example. I also wanted to read a portion of one email I received because I told them I would, of a daycare who is right across the street from this entity and has a lot of concerns. They are brand new, but doing well as a business, and I wanted to read just this one paragraph from her, the owner. Purchasing a business was a dream of mine that I made come true in July 2017. I continue to work diligently to ensure that this learning center continues to thrive for years to come. A bikini bar will do nothing but cause me to lose business because parents may not feel comfortable with their children being enrolled in a child care center so close to an establishment that keeps late hours. And there's more to the note here too, but I wanted to kind of mention that key note because there is concern about the impact of local businesses, Danny's Bar and Grill, for example, or this early learning center, or St. Pius as a parish being observed here today. And this was signed by Margaretha McLean, the owner of that daycare. I think the last thing I'll mention for now, and maybe turn it over to other council members who I think have questions too, are that it is well within our opinion and our ability to recommend denial of a license based on citizen protest and also the condition of a neighborhood. To me, those are two things that we have here in this case. And clearly, with having received the input we received over the last couple of days, the citizen protest and concern about this location is very high and impacts me substantially as the representative for this area. So what I would like to see in this iconic restaurant location in the past is something that does a little better job of filling that void with a new business that is more appropriate for this area, more appropriate for this stretch, and that fits in better with the other businesses that are being successful there with this new development we've had in recent years and new intentional planning by the planning department to get that accomplished than we have here today. So I know others want to speak, but at this point, I will go ahead and make a motion to deny. Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded to deny. We still have others who want to make comments before we vote. Ms. Melton.
Thank you, President Gray. First of all, Mr. Kurtsuba, could you come back up? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly.
It's fine.
First of all, I would like to, I appreciate you considering the name change that I asked about this morning. I really appreciate that you have considered that for the neighbors and are willing to at least take away that child Candyland game so that children are at least wanting to go in and see it. So I sincerely appreciate
thank you.
that. I want to commend your sobriety over the last at least 16 years.
Almost.
So the only thing that I find just somewhat concerning is on your application on page 3 where you were asked to list if you've ever been convicted or pled guilty to any charge. And you put C attached, and the attached record, though, only lists 2 of the DUIs. You've actually been convicted of 4 DUIs.
That's not true. You have some wrong information.
So just what I did is I went to the Nebraska Judicial, it's the official Nebraska government website for the Nebraska Judicial Branch.
Wherever you checked is wrong information. I have 2 DUIs.
Okay, well, I'm just going to ask you because it's on here. You have a date of birth of 1/28/1952?
Correct. Yes.
And Raymond F. Kurtsuba?
That's me.
And on, at least from our Nebraska justice system, which is where I pulled it, I have that you were convicted in 1999, or you were charged on December 9th, 1999, pled guilty on April 10th of 2000. You were charged with a second DUI on February 14th, 2000. Then I have that you were charged with DUI with 1 prior conviction on January 19th, 2001. And then I have that you were charged with a DUI second on August 27th, 2001, that one being Lancaster County, the previous three being.
That's not true. Lancaster County was driving on suspension. I only have 2 DUI convictions, both the first 2 that you mentioned.
Okay, well, I mean, I actually have your probation. You were put on probation for your DUI second, and you got 1 year from Lancaster County. And I mean, I actually went and printed the case.
The probation from Lancaster County was for driving on suspension. I have 2 DUIs, period.
I would like, since I referenced it, I would like to admit the case summaries that have the DUIs with all the dates for the record, along with the justice printout.
Well, I'd suggest we get another something else somewhere from the police department or whatever, because I have 2 DUIs, period.
Well, and then when you did apply 7 years ago for your liquor license.
Yes.
In 2011, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
you actually listed all 4 DUIs
No, I didn't.
on that one.
That's not true.
Okay. Well, I'll call Mr. Acosta-Trejo.
I don't have
because
4
I saw the
DUIs.
sheet. Mr. Acosta-Trejo, could you please?
Whatever information you have is going to be totally incorrect.
Mr. Acosta-Trejo, if you could.
William Acosta-Trejo, Assistant City Attorney.
And sir, you can sit down for a moment. We'll have Mr. Acosta-Trejo speak. Thank you. And earlier today, I had asked you for a copy of the application and the prior. And here I have from August 11th, where it's the same information. I have that Mr. Conservative actually listed his DUIs. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then, Mr. Acosta-Trejo, I think I called to your attention the Omaha Police Department in the background check that they did only came up with the 2, but I ran it through Justice. Did you run it through our justice system? And if you could confirm what Justice is for the rest of the people out there, I think us attorneys use it all the time. But
Yes, Justice is the online case management for the state of Nebraska, and so all the court filings in the state of Nebraska will be listed in the justice system. And you are correct that the Omaha Police Department criminal history came up with charges to which Omaha Police had record of, not necessarily any other county or state patrols. It doesn't come up with minor offenses, but criminal offenses, for the most part, do come up in the Omaha criminal history.
And so when I pulled up the Justice and it has the actual case files for Douglas County, I came up with 4 DUIs.
And correct, the justice system would be more comprehensive. It would have more information. Sometimes cases get continued, they get split, different cases from county court to district court. There's multiple reasons why the justice system would have more information than the Omaha criminal history.
Okay. Thank you very much for that explanation. The other thing I want to do, I know we only had a few people testify. Could I just see a, no, sir, I'm moving on. Could I see a show of hands from everybody that is here opposing this today, just for the record? Okay, and I know not all of you came up to speak, but I just wanted to see how many people were here. I also, for the record, would like to submit, I have 115 separate emails from different people, and this is just what I've received as of this morning. I know that my phone still has more emails, but I think it's important to show kind of the community opposition to this, and that this really isn't the type of business that the majority of the neighbors and the businesses want to see. So just for the record, I'm going to offer, and I think I numbered them, so I know it's 115 separate emails. I did attempt to respond to everybody's email. I think a little after midnight last night, though, I quit. So if I didn't respond to your email, I am sorry. I did get them, and I have printed them if I received them by this morning. But I did on a couple of these emails. I received one email from a Stephanie Johnson that's included in there. and she's a business owner of neighboring property. She actually has, she states, I own and have operated 93 apartment homes at 72nd and Seward, and would like nothing more than new commercial development, but not this type of business. And she's afraid that this will affect her ability to rent out her apartments and units, because that's not, this type of business isn't the kind of business that they want to, that people want to see and live next to, just as I know another resident testified who lives around the corner. Yes. I received the same email from Margartha, who runs the Margartha McLean, who runs the Smart Start Learning Center, but also one of her teachers, Molly, also sent an email because she's concerned about Smart Start and the success of Smart Start. So here you have an entrepreneur. I know Senator Thibodeau testified earlier too. She owns an early childhood education center, and I think she'd tell you, if you lose 5 kids, your profit margin's pretty slim when you're running an early childhood education center. I know St. Pius running even a school. That's difficult. It could cost you teachers. You might have to fire teachers and could eventually shut you down. And I don't think that's what we want to see. We have numerous daycare centers, and we received emails from them that are in and around there. I know Creighton Prep is down the street. My son also just graduated in May from Creighton Prep. And I'm not sure that's what we want our young men driving by, or even hopefully they don't attempt to go in there. And I got another email. Apparently somebody knows that I have a son that goes to St. Robert's, and they made somebody from St. Pius said, how would you like it if Big Fred's turned into a bikini bar? Would you like to be, pulling into St. Robert's every day, dropping your son off with this type of business and clientele right across the street? And it did. I mean, it really hit home. We wouldn't want that either. And if I wouldn't want that from where my child goes to school, I don't want that for where your children go to school either. Not to mention I have 3 very good neighbors that live around me that are all St. Pius parishioners, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get away from them last night. So, I mean, it's not just the people that live in and around, but it's people all over the city that actually care about your neighborhood. I think Benson's been great. They've had a lot of growth. I'm not necessarily opposed to another liquor license. I mean, we've got some great establishments that have opened there in Benson. My oldest son actually lives in the Benson area himself and loves to frequent the establishments down there and loves how it's grown. What I don't want to see is have this turn around, have businesses go under, have more empty bays. I mean, we're struggling with empty bays just even down the street. We have Shopco's that have closed. We have, Gordman's that have closed. So we really need to do things that are going to help our brick and mortar places around the city and help that growth and help that development, make businesses want to come here and open. And I'm not sure that this is the smart way to do it. And so in receiving the opposition emails from the business owners surrounding, and then in addition to any of the property values that I'm very concerned about, the people that live around there affecting their property values, potentially costing jobs and the businesses. I did second Councilman Festerson's motion to deny because I just don't think this is the right place. And again, Mr. Katsurba, I understand that you believe you have the legal right, and I agree. I think what we're asking is if you could just maybe move it to a place that's not in the middle of so many schools and residents and neighborhoods. There is another bar, but it's kind of hidden and located not around any schools, or I don't even think there's a residence that you can see from that location. I think that would be a better place, and it's not even that far. But right here at 72nd and Maple, right at the entrance of Benson, just doesn't seem like that's a great location for this. But I do want to commend you for thinking about the name, for your willingness to change the name in the event that you do get a liquor license from the Nebraska Liquor Commission. I would love to see change that name. So I want to thank you very much. Well, I think I'll defer. I'll let any other council members call anybody up.
Thank you. Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, President Gray. Mr. Katsuba, if you could step up there, please. I got just a couple questions. Somewhere in the conversation you had mentioned this place won't be a business with a cot in the back. I don't know the layout. It's been a long time since I've been to this place. Will there be any separate rooms off of the main area for anything that would be going on?
There will be 4 rooms that are approximately 5 foot by 6 foot, which somebody can have a private dance, which is all video monitored by the person at the front, the security. So there is no touching, no contact whatsoever.
How many rooms again?
4.
And then one last thing, because, well, that's disturbing to hear, but besides that, I think the reason this has got so many eyes opened is because of the name bikini. I'm sure you have a dress code. This is your business.
It's not even going to say bikini on the sign.
That's fine. Well, that was what I was asking. Give me your definition of what your dress code's going to mean for the word bikini.
It's going to, whatever the statutes allow for, that's going to be our dress code. Full bikinis.
Well, explain to me what your definition of the dress code's going to be for the word bikini.
Tops and bottom, bikini top. You'll see them out at the Funplex.
Okay. Thank you.
I would, if I could, like to mention again, whatever information Ms. Melton has on DUIs, it's totally incorrect. Number one, I would never received a liquor license 7 years ago if I had 4 DUIs.
Okay. Let somebody ask you that first, okay? Thank you. Mr. Jerem.
Yes, thank you. You can have a seat.
Thanks.
Seeing so many people here today, first of all, your friends at Holy Cross say hello, and we're in solidarity with you here today for a number of reasons. Striking was what we just heard about these 4 private rooms. That was a real shocker to me because the currently unregulated club in the city that allows this sort of activity in totally nude form happens to be in my district and in the neighborhood around there is really dealing in a stifling way those who are trying to redevelop the area. So the person, I think there were a couple who spoke about the business and trying to redevelop, and that's spot on, because if you have a business like this, regardless of what it means to undermine the core essence to building strong neighborhoods and what it means to do that, it really does curtail the activities of the development community in trying to attract new businesses and retailers to locate in an area where such a business resides. And so I'm convinced it won't be in my district until that Club Omaha closes or moves on that 72nd and Dodge corridor, south of Dodge anyway, has any realistic shot at redeveloping. In this particular instance, you do have a compelling city interest in terms of the redevelopment activity that's going on in the 72nd and Blondo area and to the east. And what we've seen in Blackstone, what we've seen in Dundee and other areas where there are business improvement districts is that in Exarban Village without a business district, that the development kind of expands in concentric circles as development spurs redevelopment, which spurs redevelopment, and it just expands outward in all the different directions. So it's not surprising to me, given the concentrated efforts of the mayor, the planning department, the development community, and so many others, that this part of our city really is at the verge of something special. And if we voted to approve this, otherwise lawful activity, it would curtail redevelopment in this area. So that's the main point I want to make. The second thing I want to say is this, is that, I remember the days when we walked our 2 daughters to Holy Cross, and then there comes a time when those kids want to walk themselves to school. And it's tough as a parent to kind of let them fly a little bit and let them make the walk. And sometimes they don't come right home. when our daughters got the age where they were at Mercy, fortunately, we were the place where the friends kind of chose to hang out at our house, so we knew where our daughters were then. But kids do wander. They are inquisitive. The principal who spoke talked about the culture at St. Pius. I was remembering the days when our kids were in the sports. They were the best winners and the best losers there were in sports in the CYO and PAL leagues. That if they won, they were supportive of the other team. If they lost, they were the first to shake the hand and not act like poor sports. So the kids who are at Pius, I think, because of the culture that's there, are brought up in a way to want to be friendly, want to, say hello to people. And if they're out wandering about at Dairy Queen with their friends, it's not far-fetched at all to see what you are so concerned about actually happening, where they could try to go in and they could be seeing activity. And there is a nexus between the service of alcohol and various vices in our city, and it's recognized in writing in the Liquor Control Commission's rules that they've adopted that are in effect. They recognize in this state that the sale of alcohol contributes to these societal issues, and so it's undeniable for anyone to get up here and say otherwise. It is recognized as fact in this state that is the case. It's how you control it, how you regulate it, and in this case, it's as simple as the Sesame Street rule for me. If you look at the neighborhood, you look at what's going on there with strong parks, strong schools, strong businesses like Danny's. I don't know if he's still here, but I have friends that have gone there every Thursday since they graduated from Creighton. And these chaps are in their mid-60s now. So I cannot imagine what kind of business you'd have that's that good for that long of a period of time. But they're strong businesses, the point I want to make there. And as they said in the song of Sesame Street, one of these things just doesn't belong, one of these things just doesn't. And this is so obvious the case to me, and that I just can't support it. So it's no reflection on you, Mr. Katsurba, but I just don't see what the goals of the city are, that the planning department, Mr. Festerson, the mayor, the businesses, the developers, the schools, the neighborhood organizations, all are trying to do in this area. Your business is just not compatible with the long-term goals of our city. At the core of building strong neighborhoods and strong business districts, and what we are at the verge and cusp of doing in this area. And so I can't support you for those reasons, and that's the way I'm going to be voting, so I just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'll try to be brief. I will say, I was talking to my colleague here, I think going back through the record, there are only 2 DUIs, but in addition to the last application that was done for the liquor license at the bowling alley compared to this one, the driving under suspension in Lancaster County was not included in this most current application. So I would say that current application has some fairly relevant information that was omitted from the application. And when we're considering an application, I think if the applicant isn't giving us all the information that we are supposed to have to consider, I find that a fault in the application. That's one of the reasons I'll be opposing this. The other thing is when some discussions were had this morning about, and we've heard about citizen protests. And the citizen protest isn't just necessarily, I don't like it, I don't want to, I don't think it fits there. I think we have to have more for, if this has a negative recommendation, the city attorney has to take that down to the State Liquor Commission and get up and defend the city's position on that regard. So we want to make sure that there's relevant information that they can stand behind when making that presentation. So I think when we're talking about that, we have to make sure that and we've heard about the loss of business component of this, which I think is something that the city will, if this is denied, the city will be making that case in front of the State Liquor Commission. So for those two reasons, I will be voting against it. And again, I've actually known Ray over a number of years, and I know he's an upstanding citizen, and I would agree with Mr. Jerem, Mr. Festerson, and others about the use here. I had people raise their hands, but I didn't get. Oh, you didn't count? Okay. Well, okay. Before I get there, I'll just. So a little exercise here. We're going to have you raise your hand one more time so we can at least give an approximate number for the record. So those who are here against this, if you could, just one more time, hopefully, raise your hands, and I'll let you count, Amy, while I close my statement by saying, like others here, I've gotten calls and emails and letters, probably if you count calls, letters, emails, more than 30. Probably well over 150, including Father Nitschke from Prep, as well as others who he is in Wisconsin, couldn't be here today, but would have been had he had the opportunity to. So wanted to state for the record those reasons, and those conclude my comments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. There are no further. Oh, Mr. Festerson.
Thanks, Mr. President. One last thing. So I think it is pretty clear where the vote's going to reside on this, and that's in favor of denial, which is the current motion on the table for myself. What I want to do, though, realizing that this is ultimately a recommendation and could still go to the State Liquor Commission, I want to remove that motion from the table for now until I reinstate it, because I also want to move the name change in the meantime, which I think the applicant is amenable to and has said so on the record, from Candyland to Candies, which is Kandies. And I want to move that amendment to the application. Is that the correct procedure, Madam Clerk?
Yes. Does the seconder withdraw as well? Will you withdraw from the original motion? Yes, okay. Okay.
And then did you second the new substitute?
Yeah, and then we'll second.
Spelling.
I don't think there's
no,
any in there.
Is it apostrophe?
Want to give the spelling real quick? And then just confirm your agreement to that.
It would be Kandis, no E.
No apostrophe.
Okay. Any apostrophe?
Excuse me?
Any apostrophe?
Yes, apostrophe, yes.
Okay, thank you. So that's the motion. I believe there was a second.
There's no further light. Well, I'm sorry. There's one light. Ms. Melton, did you want to say anything before the vote?
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to note that there were at least 33, if I saw everybody's hand, at least 33 people that took the time to come down here to talk in front of the council.
Okay, I just said more than 30, but okay.
Yeah, I did my best, so I brought it. Thank you.
And a few people left. So there was actually more than that, but a few people left. So you just wanted to confirm that, so you don't need to speak anymore? Yep. Okay, there's a motion and a second for the name change, amendment for the name change. There are no further lights. Roll call.
Palermo.
Is this for the name change?
Just for the name change.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Now motion to deny.
Second.
No further lights. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
We can take a minute to let people clear out.
Yeah, we'll take a minute to let people clear out. Thank you for coming. Yes. If they want to stay, they can stay. Senator, you're more than welcome to stay if you like.
Okay, fair. Thank you.
I don't think they look alike. Did you see any resemblance?
No.
Did you think they looked alike, Amy and her sister? Do you think her sister and Amy look alike?
I think they do.
Do they?
can tell they're sisters.
Let's proceed, Madam Clerk.
All right, item 9, an application to consider a Class C liquor license for Lake Park and Company doing business as Emery's Cafe located at 2118 North 24th Street, Suite 101.
Public hearing agenda item number 9 is today. Proponents, please. Number 9, proponents, please. There she is.
Don't be scared.
Just name and address for the record, please. Okay, and you're here to answer any questions that the council might have, is that right? Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Yeah, you don't have to worry about this. I know that's what you're thinking. No. Second, no further lights, roll call.
Palermo.
No, there
I'm
weren't
just
any.
kidding. Yes. Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 9.
You can go now.
Item 9 is approved, 7-0. Item 10, an application to consider a Class CKG liquor license for Midtown Alamo LLC, doing business as Alamo Draft House Cinema, located at 3201 Farnham Street, Suite 6111.
Public hearing on agenda item number 10 is today. Proponents, please.
Council. My name's Tyler Calabrese at 3210 Farnham Street with Alamo Draft House Cinemas.
Thank you, and you're here to answer any questions.
I'm here to
we
answer
might
any
have.
questions.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moved and seconded to approve item 10. No lights. Roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Festerson.
Yes.
Harding. Yes. Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Yes. Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 10 is approved, 7-0.
Thank you, Council.
Item 11, an application to consider a Class C liquor license for Ohana Helenihi, Inc., doing business as Molly's Pub, located at 8525 Park Drive.
Public hearing on agenda item number 11 is today. Proponents, please.
Teresa Helenihi, 805 South Grandview, Papillion, Nebraska.
Thank you. Are you here to answer any questions
Yes,
we
sir.
might have? Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, President Gray.
Mr. I'll get it out eventually. Yeah.
So, ma'am, just a quick question. It was brought up in pre-council that there was and I'm going to have the terminology wrong, but there was an outstanding bond
Yeah.
that we're working
Yeah,
on
I had
possibly.
no idea. It's been taken care of
It's been taken care of as of
July 6th.
July 6th.
Yeah, I have. Can I bring it over?
Please. I guess for time purposes, if the paperwork's, should we give him a minute?
1 second.
Okay, just 1 second, please.
Okay.
Our lawyer's looking at it.
We're good.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll look forward to coming to visit. Move to approve.
Moved and seconded to approve item 11. There are no further lights. Roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Festerson.
Yes.
Harding. Yes. Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Yes. Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 11 is approved, 7-0. Item 12, an application to consider a Class I liquor license for 550 Degrees LLC, doing business as Zio's Pizzeria, located at 18110 and 18114 Wright Street.
Public hearing on agenda item number 12 is today. Proponents, please. In favor? Any in favor of this? Thank you.
Rick Ludwig, 2736 North 122nd Circle,
Okay.
Omaha.
You here to answer any questions we might have, if we have any?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moved and seconded to approve item 12. No lights. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 12 is approved, 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 13, an application to consider a Class I liquor license for Mouth of the South CBD LLC, doing business as Mouth of the South Southern Grub, located at 7051 Ames Avenue, with a waiver of City Council Liquor Rule 7.
Public hearing on agenda item number 13 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, Ryan Ernst, 3422 Forest Lawn.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Festerson.
Thanks, Mr. President, and welcome, Ryan. It's good to see you again, and
Thank you.
glad to see this on the agenda. As my colleagues know, there was a course of fire at your original place there in Florence that was doing great, and I know everyone loved, so I know they'll be sorry to see you leave Florence, but welcome you to be not too far away, which is actually just outside my council district, I believe, but still okay in Councilman Gray's district, at the old Lolo's location there, which I think will work well for you. So I'm very supportive. One question I had for you is, what do you know about your former location? I know it's currently vacant in the middle of Florence there, about the future of that property.
Probably going to just put it up for sale here shortly.
Okay.
We're going to be too busy to try to do anything with it. I've had a couple of people interested, so I'm going to look at cleaning it up and putting it on the market.
Yeah, okay. That'd be welcome, and let me know if I can help you with that. It's kind of right in the middle there in the main street.
I
Of
know,
course, it'd be
it's
nice to
been-
have something
it's-
redeveloped there.
Yeah, it's been rough.
Yeah, I appreciate, and I'm glad to see that you're building from the ashes there and starting over again, so I know you'll be successful.
Thank you.
You bet. And I think we have to do a waiver of a park rule number 7, correct?
It can be included in the motion.
Be included in the motion.
Yep, so a motion to approve with the waiver of rule number 7.
Moved and seconded to approve item number 13 with the consideration of rule number 7. No further lights. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 13 is approved, 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 14, a request to appoint Ronald E. McGaw as manager of SMG Food and Beverage LLC, doing business as Savor, to their Class IK liquor license located at 2425 South 67th Street.
Public hearing on agenda item number 14 is today. Proponents, please.
Ron McGaw, 1538 South 169th Avenue.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moved and seconded to approve item 14. No lights. Roll call.
Palermo. Festerson.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 14 is approved, 7-0.
Thank you, Council.
Item 15, an application to appoint Clark W. Anderson as manager of West Center Lodging LLC, doing business as Staybridge Suites, to their Class I liquor license located at 2720 Oak Drive.
Public hearing on agenda item number 15 is today. Proponents, please.
Yes, my name's Clark Anderson, 2720 Oak Drive, Omaha, Nebraska.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moved and seconded to approve item 15. No lights. Roll call.
Palermo. Festerson.
Yes.
Harding. Jerem. Melton. Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 15 is approved, 7-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
The public hearings on agenda items numbers 16 through 19 were held on July 10th, 2018.
Motion to remove and allow withdrawal on number 23.
Let's
Okay,
handle
23
these ones
is under
first.
resolution.
Let's do these first.
Oh,
Ordinances.
okay.
Moved and seconded to approve items 16 through 19. There are no further lights. Roll call.
Palermo. Festerson. Harding. Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed, 7-0.
The public hearing on agenda items numbers 20 through 24 are today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, Indicate the agenda item number you wish to address. Identify yourself by your name, address, who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. And now we'll move to
23.
We'll move to remove and withdraw number 23
From the agenda.
from the agenda.
Moving to removing.
Yes.
10 times fast.
Is there a motion on the rest of it?
Well, we have a motion. Is
we
there a
have
second to?
motion on this one first. Okay, you made a motion. Second, roll call.
Palermo. Festerson. Harding. Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Now
It'd be-
to approve.
Now we'll move 20, 21, 22, and 24. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded to approve items 20, 21, 22, and 24. There are no lights. Roll call.
Palermo. Festerson. Harding. Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 25, an ordinance levying a special tax and assessment on certain lots, parts of lots, and pieces of real estate in the city of Omaha to cover the cost of clearing snow from sidewalks in district number SWSR 2017-01. A is an amendment of the whole requested by the Public Works Department.
That over to August 28th.
Second.
Moved and seconded to lay over item 25 until August 28. No further lights. Roll call.
Palermo. Festerson. Harding. Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 26, a resolution to approve the Charlie Graham Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located at 4103 Leavenworth Street in an amount up to $562,944.
Public hearing on agenda item number 26 is today. Proponents, please.
Right with the world. Good afternoon. Bridget Hadley with City Planning. Before you is the Charlie Graham TIF redevelopment project plan. This is an urban infill redevelopment project. The Charlie Graham operations, the business, is a locally owned, operated automobile and light truck service center and auto body repair business. It has been an integral part of the neighborhood, its neighborhood, for at least 30 years, well known in the community. This particular project is a result of them needing to relocate. The southwest, not the southwest. So this is 42nd Street, Leavenworth, just to give some bearing. And what's shaded in blue is the new site. This here is the current site of the Charlie Graham. There is, as we know, a lot of expansion happening with UNMC, and the city needs to actually come in and encroach upon the property to add a right turn lane on the north side of 42nd Street. As a result, Charlie Graham needs to relocate. It worked out that they could relocate over to this site. The relocation will also allow Charlie Graham to expand their operations and stay within the neighborhood, continuing to serve the patrons that they have been serving for years. What will be constructed is a one-story masonry glass front building, approximately 17,000 square feet. Quickly, this is the site plan. So this is the site of the building with parking basically to the rear and to the east. The landscaping here. And then some elevations of, I don't know if you can zoom out a little bit. I guess that shows enough of it. So looking from 42nd Street, and then the view from Leavenworth Street, and the very famous Charlie Graham sign will remain with the new site. Again, this will allow for a relocation of the business, expansion of the business operations. There will be parking. There's some site constraints that occurred, so TIF will definitely help them to make this new location work. There's Also going to be, right now there's about 10 to 12 employees, I believe, but the hope is that, again, moving to this location, it will allow them to increase their employee count to about 20. So that's positive. The TIF amount, as been stated, is about $563,000. The estimated investment is about $3.5 million. TIF eligible expenses are only I shouldn't say only, are about 1.4, but again, the TIF is only about 563,000 of that TIF eligible, mostly for the going toward acquisition, some studies, environmental studies, architectural and engineering type expenses, as well as public improvements at the site. With that, I would ask for your approval.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard?
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of Council, Brent Beller, 1144 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the project applicant, BH&JH Leavenworth LLC. With me today is Bruce Hanson, DBA Great Plains Auto, current owner of the Charlie Graham operations. As Bridget said, this TIF incentive will allow the expansion of the current operations, the longstanding Midtown business. As Bridget said, about 12 employees now, upwards of 20 employees after the expansion. So the TIF incentive greatly helps defray some of the development costs. So with that, here for any questions or comments.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Bridget always is very thorough in her explanation. I was also going to bring up the fact that even though the TIF amount is for $563,000, there were over $1 million worth of TIF eligible expenses, but at the $563,000, it amounts to about 16% on the TIF, which is again well within the boundaries. And applaud the planning department and all the related departments for their work in getting this through, and wish Mr. Hanson and his group much success at that corner.
Is there a motion? What did I do? Is there a second? Moved and seconded to approve item 26. No further lights that I could see. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 26 is approved, 7-0. Item 27, a resolution to approve the bank Phase 2 tax increment financing redevelopment project plan located at 1919 Douglas Street in an amount up to $5 million.
Public hearing agenda item number 27 is today. Proponents, please. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning. This TIF redevelopment project plan, the bank Phase 2, is located downtown. It's a renovation of an existing office building located at 20th and Douglas. Fairly substantial project, a fairly attractive building clad in Italian travertine marble. You're probably all very familiar with it. It's been sitting on the site since 1969. It's an adaptive reuse project whereby the developer is going to convert the office building into an apartment project, market rate rental units. Wells Fargo will remain in the building and operate in the building, but in a smaller space. They'll actually be adding an additional floor to the top of the building, and there's a mezzanine level within the existing building that will become an additional floor. So you're looking at 5 floors of residential units, be about 213 apartment units, or new apartment units. They'll be tied into the bank building, which is an apartment complex adjoining it, separate but complementary. They will have some shared amenities since the owner is the same. Includes community rooms, fitness rooms, a rooftop pool. The bank Phase 2 building itself has 122 parking spaces within the building, and there's another 150 on the surface lot immediately to the west along Farnham Street. The owner-developer is New Style Development, so we have a very experienced developer who's has successfully taken on some pretty major and challenging projects. And this one is a pretty substantial project as well, with a total project cost of $33.6 million. They're requesting $5 million in TIF support. The residential use meets the goals of the city's master plan and is really a pretty good use for downtown because as we grow the population, resident population downtown, that helps support the retail and even provides employees for the office space or housing for the people who work in offices downtown. Anyway, a $33.6 million project, $5 million TIF request. The project meets the criteria of the city's TIF program, and we ask for your approval.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard?
Todd Heaston with New Style Development, 2223 Dodge Street. Here to answer any questions, and I did want to make one quick. We are, after our Atlas has went over so well, we always try to regroup kind of with all the property managers, and we are taking the pool off of this so we can kind of keep our rents down lower, but it figures out almost $60 per month per unit. So we're trying to hit that middle range. We felt there was enough of this upper range coming on that we wanted to bring that down. So we will be eliminating the pool on this building. So there'll be plenty of other amenities, and we thought that might be a good market. Only about 25% of the people actually use the pools that are in there. More of a selling piece than it is anything on these projects. So I wanted to make that correction for you. Any other questions?
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding, was your light still on?
It is.
Okay.
Todd, if you wouldn't mind coming back up, I have kind of a question and a statement. My question is, when do you and your team members sleep?
They're starting to ask that same question. We're going to take it easy.
That was, and my statement was, I'll never get tired of saying it, but thank you for all that you do to invest in the city of Omaha. You have truly made a mark, and especially on your redevelopment projects and on the eastern side of our city are tremendous, and I appreciate you and your team's efforts.
No, thank you for the kind words.
Thank you. Mr. Jerem.
Yes, Todd, I just also want to add my thanks, and you and Mary have just been a dynamic duo of redevelopment, and there are a lot more buildings to do, so you can't retire
so I get to start
yet.
resting, maybe. I get to take it easy, right?
And I think your pickup can go on autopilot between here and Woodbine.
There you go, yeah.
So also want to add my thanks and a $33 million investment in this project. And then also compliment you for recognizing the need for more affordable rents in that part of the housing market, because I was listening to something on the radio that there was a recent economic development summit that I think the governor was hosting that even included trying to find a way to more creatively address the workforce housing shortage, which used to be called affordable housing. Now we're calling it workforce housing. And to the extent that you can keep your rents down about $60 a unit on this particular project, I think you'll see success, because I'm hearing from people that we need to be doing more as a city to fill this part of the housing market.
Perfect. There's that gap in there between the affordable housing and the market rate.
Right.
It's tough.
So,
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Festerson.
Thanks, Mr. President. Maybe just a short anecdote, too, that I think is kind of funny. I think I shared this with you at the Creighton Bridge opening, but we were in a recent planning committee meeting, and the planning department noted to us in 2017 was the first year in Omaha history, or at least in recent history, or I should say recorded history, where the number of units, permitted units in the urban area exceeded the permitted units in the suburban area. I said, boy, that's really great. We like the infill. What do you attribute that to? And they thought about it for a second, and they said, Todd Heaston. So I do appreciate your work, too.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further lights. Is there a motion? Motion approved. Moved and seconded to approve item 27. There are no lights. Roll call.
Palermo. Festerson.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 27 is approved, 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 28, an ordinance declaring the necessity of acquiring private property for the purpose of the 24th Street Complete Streets, providing that the city negotiate with the property owners, that is, to each specified parcel which cannot be obtained by negotiation, be condemned.
Public hearing agenda item number 28 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 29, an ordinance to approve an agreement with OCLC for the purchase of a 5-year renewal subscription for cataloging and resource sharing services in a total amount not to exceed $237,258.83, covering the period from July 1, 2018 to June 30th, 2023.
Public hearing agenda item number 29 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 30, an ordinance to approve an agreement with Millard Public Schools for the city to provide up to 4 associate school resource officers, 1 K-9 associate school resource officer, and marked police cruisers from August 13, 2018, and ending at the close of the 2018-2019 school year.
Public hearing agenda item number 30 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there proponent?
If you have any questions, I'll answer them.
Okay. But, are there any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Pauls.
Mr. President, not too long ago, there were 30-plus people here. They were concerned about the security of the children in case they walked past an establishment. Well, I'm looking at 30 and 31. I'm talking about the security of the individuals inside the school. So I do have a couple of questions I would like to pose. But I just want to, a reminder for those of you who are interested in security, in September, the legislature, the judicial committee down there is going to have a study. They're going to have 3 studies. One's going to be about the security of the schools in general. One is going to be about the role and purpose of resource officers in the schools. I have been asked by certain individuals in school systems of what happens to be the training of police officers, not as police officers, but police officers dealing with students. I thought that was interesting. I didn't go into any more detail to that. And also there's going to be a study of allowing, well, basically teachers, for the most part, carrying guns in schools. So you can see there's a wide variety of issues that the legislature is going to be talking about in September. And I do hope somebody from the city of Omaha does go and speak when it comes to the role of resource officers in schools, just to make sure that they get across what we are doing. But I have a couple questions now, if I could have you please come down. And I'm going to sort of merge 30 and 31 together because they both deal with associate school resource officers. Number 30, we're talking about 4 associate school resource officers. This is particularly in the Millard system. Now, those are for the middle schools?
Yes, for the middle schools.
Because they are basically retired police officers?
Yes, they are retired police officers.
Okay. Well, I noticed that there are 4 of those plus and their salaries have been increased. And one of the things that caught my attention, in Millard, they're going to pay them $40,000, not to exceed $40,000. But then when I jump down to 31 and I see Elkhorn's school system, it's going to be $27,000.
Yes.
Is that because Elkhorn is asking for less time?
Elkhorn, the officer that works in Elkhorn only works 20 hours per week. But with Millard and with OPS and Millard and OPS, they work 28 hours a week as far as a retired officer. So it's an 8-hour-a-week difference. That's why the pay is decreased like that.
Okay.
Can I have your name?
Sure.
Record, please.
My name is Amos Shepard. I'm the sergeant on my police department. I can use the police department's address. It's 505 South 15th Street.
Thank you. Mr. Pauls, you can
Okay,
continue.
thank you, Sergeant.
Okay.
As I'm just going through here, I figure that I'll go back to 30 then, since we're talking about Millard. That averages about 5 hours a day.
Yes.
Okay. What time does, because I want to make sure the parents know that the schools are not totally secure with a resource officer throughout the day. I don't see how the 5 hours, because what time do they get there in the morning?
It varies with each school. It depends on what the school's needs are. Some schools would like the resource officers there early in the morning to help with traffic when the kids come in the morning, and some would rather have resource officers work the latter part of the day, so they come in a little bit later to deal with when the kids are leaving the school at that point in time. So it just depends on the needs of each different school.
Okay, and I understand that, but the point I'm trying to get across, because I think some parents think that there's a police officer from the beginning of the day till the end of the day. And I know that cannot be with these hours. I understand that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to the high schools. Now, those are full-time police officers.
Yes, they are.
And there are about, my last count, around 16 in the city, full-time police officers that just work during the school year.
Yes.
As I read that, I'll just read a line here. While school is in session during the regular school year.
Yes.
So during the regular school year, we have our high schools, the majority of the high schools, I don't think all of them.
All high schools in Omaha that are public high schools.
Public high schools.
Public high schools.
Private high schools do not.
No, not at this point in time. No, they don't.
Are you telling me no private high school has any type of resource?
Not police officers, as far as Omaha police officers, no. Not private.
But we believe we need them in public schools, but we don't need them in private schools, is what you're telling me. That's not your decision.
My personal opinion, I think resource officers are a great asset in the schools, and I would love to have them in all the schools.
Okay. But what I'm trying, here's another thing too, and I'll probably get more detail later on, because I'm trying to prepare myself in case I go down in September.
Right.
So during a regular school session, the police officer in the high school is there for at least 7 hours a day.
At least 7 hours a day.
Okay, 7 hours a day. And the police officer and the probably high school principal makes the decision how they do their scheduling?
Yes. Well, just in the middle schools. High schools, they're there predominantly the whole day.
Okay. I'm just trying to let people know that because we all sort of calm down then after when there's something happening in what we don't want to happen in some of these high schools. It happens throughout the nation.
Right.
I think we ought to be prepared ahead of time, especially when we start talking in September down in Lincoln. I think we need to have some more information so people do know what's going on. So for the most part, the police officers are there in high school for the total day.
Yes.
And not quite that in the middle school.
Yes, it's based on the number of the 20 hours a week in Elkhorn and the 28 hours a week with OPS and Millard.
Okay.
As far as the associate resource officers.
Okay, then one final question, because Elkhorn, this is a retired police officer who works for Elkhorn.
In the middle school, yes, and then we have a full-time officer that works at the high school.
Okay, at each high school or just?
Well, one high school is within the confines of the city.
Oh, okay.
The other high school
in Douglas County.
Is in Douglas County.
Yeah, so they have a Douglas County. Okay, that's good to know. Okay. Thank you, but I do hope you take the message back that.
No, I definitely will.
Because we have some individuals who don't quite understand what the system is like in the big city.
No, I understand. I definitely understand that.
Thank you.
Item 31, an ordinance to approve an agreement with the Elkhorn Public Schools for the city to provide one associate school resource officer and a marked police cruiser to the premises of Elkhorn High School located at 711 Veterans Drive from August 14th, 2018 and ending at the close of the 2018-2019 school year.
Public hearing agenda item number 31 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Your proponent?
Proponent. Luis Jimenez, 518 North 40th Street. I just wanted to say that I was looking through this and I saw that the canine officer is paid $40 an hour. So if anybody would provide an explanation as to what a canine officer is, because is that an officer with a dog? No.
Thank you. Are there any other?
That was on 30.
Okay, that was on 30. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Public hearing is closed. Sergeant, I do have one question though. Sergeant, with the middle schools, are the resource officers armed?
Yes, they're certified police officers. Now, there's also like McMillan, Monroe, and there's another one in South Omaha Middle School. And the name escapes right now. We have Norris, that's the other one. They have 3 full-time officers, so they also work 40 hours a week. But those are only 3 middle schools that have a full-time officer.
Okay, that are armed.
They're all armed.
They're all armed.
All police officers are armed in their schools.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. With that, the public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 32, an ordinance to approve the redevelopment agreement with the Board of Regents of the University of Nebraska to implement the Center Loft and Baxter Arena Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan for a redevelopment site located at 2425 South 67th Street and generally located at southwest of 64th and Center Streets in the amount of $1 million in redevelopment bond proceeds.
Public hearing agenda item number 32 is today. Proponents, please.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the Board of Regents of the University of Nebraska. With me today is Phil Bakken with the University of Nebraska. What this agreement today does is essentially memorializes the redevelopment plan that was approved by this council on October 24th of last year. It's actually for $2 million, but the $1 million is funded currently, and the remaining $1 million is not currently committed, but it's intended that it will be paid in the future. And this is an additional $2 million over and above the 6.3 that was approved some time ago before the arena was constructed. This $2 million effectively helps defray the TIF-eligible expenses incurred when the university acquired the mobile home park, or a portion of the mobile home park, to turn it into surface parking. There was a lot of demolition costs, and there was a lot of utilities for each one of the pad sites. So there was a substantial number of costs, or amount of costs, involved in redeveloping this site with respect to that. So that's what this relates to. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 33, an ordinance to approve the agreement with the Exarban Future Trust, which provides funds to reimburse Exarban Future Trust for the construction and installation of various public improvements in and around Exarban Village and Baxter Arena, generally located between Pacific and Center Streets, 62nd Street and Little Papillion Creek, and authorizes the use of $1 million in either transportation bonds or lease purchase bonds to fund those expenses.
Public hearing agenda item number 33 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 34, an ordinance to approve an agreement to enter into a sublease and purchase agreement and a sublease and purchase agreement with Omaha Hotel LLC for property located at 1001 at Cass Street, commonly known as Omaha Hilton Hotel.
Public hearing agenda item number 34 is today. Proponents, please.
Paul Kratz, City Attorney. I come here today with a lot of pride and a little bit of sadness, too. It was in the early 2000s that Bob Peters, Ken Bungers, myself, and Bob Schwartling, who's been our hotel consultant and is here today, we started this project. We weren't sure if it was going to be successful. It was a real risk. We built it with 450 rooms to begin with. In 2008, as the economy went down, we saw the success of the hotel, and we also realized we could borrow money while other people could not. So in 2011 to 13, we expanded the hotel to 600 rooms, and we've gone on from there. This hotel has always paid its debt payment. We've never had to go to the city to borrow any money in order to make the debt payments. Over the 14 years, it has produced $66 million in tax revenue, and it will produce another $6 million in tax revenue from here going on. We've negotiated with a group called Freestone Wealth Capital out of Seattle. They're a large wealth management fund with about $4 billion worth of assets. They will pay off, we have two bond issues. They will pay off the first bond issue of $37 million, and then they will essentially lease the facility for the next 30 years and pay off our debt on the $95 million bond issue. Essentially a lease-to-own type of approach. There are two agreements before you. One is the agreement to enter into a lease and purchase agreement. That will start the due diligence period of 89 days or less, and then we'll sign the purchase and lease agreement. We expect all that to occur fairly rapidly and probably by the end of August. With that, it's a very short and brief summary, and be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Festerson.
Is there an opponent?
Oh, someone wanted to, I'm sorry. Opponent or proponent?
Opponent.
Opponent, okay.
Or concerned.
Concerned.
I'm here. My name is Brad Malhat, 5107 Capitol Avenue, Omaha. I am here out of concern as a citizen. I have been negotiating, or first of all, I'm here concerned about being, I don't want to call it a threat, but and the idea that this could be, my objection could be considered a tortuous intervention, which is absolutely not true. I was requested by an individual in the city to check with my lawyer on that before I get up here and start spouting off. I did check with my law firm, very prestigious firm here in the city, and they said you absolutely have every right to be here, to make any objection you want as a citizen of the city. I'm not here to kill the deal with the Hilton. What I want to do is make sure that it's the right deal. And I have been very involved with Mr. Curtis and Mr. Kratz over the years looking for a buyer for this hotel. This hotel, it was first stated to me that this the city doesn't need to own a hotel. I mean, obviously, we know the reasons why they got involved in the first place, which was important. But after 10 years, the purpose or the objective was to get out of that business. Cities shouldn't own hotels. With roughly $140 million into the hotel through bonds, et cetera, the property is now worth $105 million or $110 million, depending on who you talk to. Something's wrong there. We took it upon ourselves as a private group to pursue a buyer. Everybody we talked to said, "You gotta be kidding me. This thing is so upside down." Through time, the city re-entered a 30-year obligation on a new bond issue of this $95 million, which then now extends the commitment of the city for 30 years, potentially, not necessarily going to happen. We had a pending offer last October, whereby we were willing to, we found a private equity firm, Piper Jaffray, who's actually running various forms of investment. But the group was willing to fund the purchase of the bond, the 37 that Mr. Kratz referred to, was willing to pay the penalty if necessary, which was another $3 to $4 million at the time. Our group was willing to put in roughly $3 to $5 million to improve the hotel. It's been stated by everybody that's looked at it that the lobby needs to be redesigned. It's totally inefficient. If you look at the bar functionality, it just doesn't work. I can give you a quick example. The Commercial Real Estate Association here in Omaha has their annual convention, I believe, over at CenturyLink. Afterwards, they congregate over into the Hilton Hotel, and there's one bartender and one server, partly because it's designed improperly. So our people analyzed it, and these are groups that run two of the largest groups in the United States. They manage well over between 500 and 1,000 hotels each, and these are for 3 to 5 star hotels worldwide. They both came in and said it's got to be redesigned. One said $5 million, one said $6 million, one said we could get by with $3 million if we just do the bar and some of the other areas. So we were willing to fund that. We were willing to fund potentially another, the development of the property out front of the hotel. There's approximately a third of an acre thereabouts of flat grassland, sits on the northwest corner of the hotel. We were willing to fund development of an approximate 50 to 60,000 square foot building there with potential additional parking underneath if it was possible. We had hired Leo Daly to come in and do an assessment of the property. They have done most of the development downtown, so they're very familiar with water tables, et cetera, et cetera. Mr. Harding may be aware of the fact that one of the considerations we had for part of the utilization of that space was possibly incorporating the Omaha Baseball Foundation, College Baseball Foundation Museum there. I was actually the guy that brought that opportunity to the city, introduced it to Kyle Peterson, asked Kyle Peterson to take over responsibility for that endeavor. We weren't obligated to that. That was just one consideration of partial utilization of that space. I have talked to other large. We had a full game plan to not only. One of my concerns as a business guy is I look at this hotel, and it's no disrespect to anybody, and I'm not trying to kill this deal, and I really resent the fact of being just people judging me from wanting to make a concerned statement here. But when I look at this as a business deal, we got $140 million into a property, and I think it was stated in the Omaha World Herald last week that the city was suggesting that it's now worth $105 million. By the way, that coincides with all the appraisals that we were given by these major hoteliers around the United States. So we got ranges of anywhere from 95 to 115. So let's say 105. That correlates back to who's running that hotel in our mind. The judgment of some of these hotel groups is that the Hilton Management Group is insufficient to run that operation, and whether they are or aren't, that's everybody's prerogative to do it, whoever owns it. But it concerns me that we got a property that's never gotten to full utilization of its. I mean, it's still operating at 65 to 68% occupancy. And it's sitting right across from the convention center. You don't even have to try to make that thing work at that level. So if you're out there and you've got 11 marketing guys and gals sitting in your budget, why in the hell is that thing operating at that kind of deficiency? We took this on very at our own expense. We worked our butts off to find people. We brought in experts. And it was continually thrown back in our face that, no, that isn't worth $105 million or $110 million. It's worth $140 million. And now, 3 years later, we're admitting that it's worth $105 million. So we had we were constantly fighting that battle. We did have a LOI signed by the hotel, a letter of intent, signed by the hotel management Corporation of Omaha, which essentially is, I believe, is a group that oversees the hotel. It was never canceled formally. We never received any cancellation notice on that. But nobody would respond to our inquiries going forward. It was determined that they were not going to go forward with us after a meeting. And all I wanted to do in honest attempt to bring the best deal to the city was find out why aren't you talking to us anymore? Why do all of a sudden you guys are working with Seattle or somebody in Seattle? And it was never responded to. Well, we got roughly 60, 90 days, and we'll get back to you. Well, I inquired 60, 90 days later. We're working with them. Looks like it's moving forward. We're working with them. Looks like it's moving forward. To me, something was either prejudged, either about us or about that group. And I think it's, to be quite honest with you, as a business guy, and I've run very successful companies in this city, I would suggest to you that this whole deal should have been put out to bid. If you look at the largest hotels, and I can point you to a $235 million hotel property in the Cayman Islands. I can talk to you about 50 other deals. They're all put out for bid. You don't negotiate with one group or the other. I mean, if you want the best deal, and the best deal to me is assurance that the city's never going to have to step back up for money, or that somebody's going to fail in their process. whether this is new buyer and they're obligated to the expense going forward, really doesn't matter. What are you doing to make sure that the business works going forward, which creates the value? If this company had been run correctly, NOI, net operating income, should be, after 15, 18, whatever years, should be in the 12, 13, $14 million range, but it's not. That's our assessment. That's the people that run these big hotels, big convention hotels all around the country said, wow, totally undermanaged. Whether it is right or wrong, if this was at $12 million, this hotel would be worth $150, $160 million. But because it's at $9 to $10 million, it's not. So it's almost at a break-even process at this point, which seems to me to provide vulnerability to somebody of potentially having to, with a new competition of new hotels going in all over the place downtown, the Marriott, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm concerned about it. And that is as a citizen, not a guy that's got screwed out of a deal, because I'm not saying we did. But I think we had a better deal. The things that I mentioned to you, the investments that we were willing to make above and beyond what I've heard so far, is significantly better for all parties concerned. And we just have not been able to move it forward. And we were just informed a couple weeks ago that we have no shot at it. So I'm disappointed. I think there's a better way to handle this thing. And I hope to God I don't get sued for intention and tortious intervention, because that is nowhere the way a city needs to treat its citizens. If I do, all hell's going to break loose, because that is wrong. That is not how anybody. I have dealt in good faith. I even emailed somebody yesterday so that they didn't get blindsided, and then I get that response back, and I just do not appreciate it. So that's my position on this. If anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to talk to you.
Thank you. Before we close the public hearing, do you wish any rebuttal?
I do. Yes, please.
In April of 2014, I entered into a non-exclusive agreement with Mr. Merlot to look for a buyer for the hotel. That agreement was extended a number of times. We've also entered into other non-exclusive agreements with other agencies to see if somebody could buy the hotel. That went on for 2.5 years with people sniffing around, making lowball offers of $105, $115 million, and they were lowball offers, so we rejected those. That wasn't appropriate. Mr. Merlot said we did enter into a letter of intent. That was in August, and that letter of intent, says specifically with respect to binding effect, this LOI is intended solely as a preliminary expression of general intentions of the parties hereto, and is to be used for discussion purposes only. The parties agree that this proposal is not intended to create any binding agreement or obligation by either party to negotiate a definitive lease agreement, and impose no duty on either party to continue negotiations. The parties intend that neither shall have any contractual obligations to the other with respect to the matters herein, unless and until a definitive lease agreement has been fully executed and delivered. A few days later, this group that Mr. Merlot is associated with brought in basically a hedge fund out of Phoenix, and they attempted to renegotiate the letter of intent. That letter of intent had all the terms that we wanted. Well, when this principal came in and sat down with us, again, he wanted to renegotiate those items, the most egregious of which is he wanted to own the hotel for 6 months before he paid us. And I just wasn't going to do that. So at that point, I sent a letter to the group. Let's see if I can find it here quickly. That said, the letter of intent, however, does not meet the city's objectives and therefore is rejected for the following reasons. I listed those reasons. Clearly, This group was given an opportunity to proceed and to find an entity that would come in and purchase the hotel. They failed to do so. I had an exclusive arrangement during that August-September period to work with Mr. Merlot and the other real estate agency. I honored that until I sent a letter that said, we're not going to deal with you anymore. I then entered into another letter of intent about a week later with Freestone. It was an exclusive agreement, and through the last 9 months or so, we've been negotiating a contract and have come to the contract that's now before the group today. I do want to address the value again a little bit. Again, the numbers that were tossed around were simply from brokers trying to get a good deal, and I understand that. We also had valuations at a lot higher than that. I shouldn't say valuations, not offers either, but people suggesting maybe it's worth more than that. That's not the issue, really. We have an entity that will be able to buy the hotel, will be able to cash flow it, will be able to make an appropriate return on their investment, and that's how we sold the hotel. So,
thank you.
With that,
we close the public hearing. I'm sorry.
Mr. Swirling?
Yeah, just very quickly, okay?
And I will. But I'd like to respond to some
Name
of
and
the
address for the record, please.
Bob Swerdling, 1670 Quebec Street, Denver, Colorado. I've had 3 addresses since I started working with this city back in 2001, 2002. I have been a consultant on this transaction and know it very, very well for many repeated times. There are certain things that are characteristic to a headquarter hotel that are not characteristic to the type of hotels that most brokers work with. My own background, just way of background, I was part of the development team on the Austin Airport Hotel, the Austin Hilton Hotel downtown, the Baltimore 750-room hotel, the Hyatt Regency in Denver, and I can go on. My focus is entirely on P3 headquarter hotels, which work very differently than was suggested earlier. What I would like to tell you on value is brokers always throw out a number hoping that they can sell a product. The only way to tell the value of a property is to hire an independent appraisal firm, which has been done for this deal. The conclusion is confidential, but I will tell you it is significantly above $105 million and will be provided to the city once it is signed off on. But it's significantly above. And here's the reason why. Most people on most hotels, when they're looking for a value, take an 8 cap or a 12.5 multiple and apply it to the NOI at the bottom of the page. Now, you may believe in this city and you may not believe in this city. And the right buyer believes that the inclusion of the Marriott is not a competitive action, but rather it is one that will support your CVB, support Mecca, and allow the hotel to do better, because currently you only have 600 full-service rooms in proximity to that convention center. And that convention center demands more. It didn't in 2002, because in 2002 you didn't have Louisville, you didn't have Des Moines, and you didn't have a slew of others that are now your competition. And the reason why the hotel has not grown exponentially in performance, the hotel when it was built was not worth anywhere near where it was, or it would have been built by the private sector. We're all smart enough to know that if there's a deal to be done that's feasible, the private sector will do it. The reason that all the hotels I mentioned were done on a P3 basis, with the city supplementing the hotels, was because the city benefits in ways that a private owner doesn't. The profit equation for, and if I'm going too long, you stop me, but I have a couple of points I'd like to make to let you know that the right decisions have been made over the years. The profit equation for a hotel owner is NOI, net operating income, minus the amount that needs to be spent to maintain the property. That's all it is. And then you multiply it by 12.5, which is an 8 cap, which is standard for hotels, and that gives you your value. The value of a hotel to a community as a headquarter hotel is an entirely different profit function. Firstly, you make taxes, which the private owner doesn't keep. Secondly, you get a room block agreement that allows you to control how the hotel books its people for the benefit of the community. and it's required to accept 80% of 60% of between 55 and 90%, depending on the contract. They have to accept those guests at a pre-booked low rate. And what that does for you as a community is it provides a connected hotel to the convention center. That connected hotel to the convention center, a low rate, means that all the overflow from the citywide events that you win go to all your other hotels. So Paul's estimate of taxes is by far an extraordinary understatement, because every time you have a convention that fills that hotel and they have to stay at the Marriott, or they have to stay at the Days Inn, or they have to stay at any other hotel in town, the city is getting taxes off those other room nights that are created because you have a headquarter hotel. So you have by no means supplemented that hotel. That hotel has met its economic development goals. It's helped to develop that area. Very quickly to a couple of points other that was mentioned. I was working this deal with a number of groups. It takes a very special owner to want this deal at its full value, because they want to be involved in a deal that's encumbered by a room block and has to work with the government. And if there's anything that the most private of citizens don't do, and it's the reason I am in the P3 business, is because I came out of government. I worked for the state of New Mexico, staffing the governor as my very first job, is I love government. So if you believe in government, and if you believe in this city, the way that you appraise the value of this hotel, sir, the way that it's appraised is on a discounted cash flow model, because you are in the absorption period. Just like any other new product that comes into town, you only have 600 rooms in your hotel. The Marriott's 300 more. You've increased the stock of full-service rooms in proximity to the convention center by 50%. It needs to be absorbed. But the reason that the city worked to help the Marriott in whatever ways it may or may not have is because you have too small a room block to compete with these other towns that you're competing with. And with the Marriott and the Hilton working together, you now have 900 rooms. And 800 to 1,000 is the minimum. And the one with the connecting bridge is the one that wins. So I'd ask you to take comfort in all of that. One more point. I'll skip the rest on this page because I know I'm going over my time allowance here. But I was working on this property before the gentleman behind me brought a deal in. And when the city called me up and said we found a deal that we liked, I went, aw shucks, because that's the way you deal with government. You don't want a reputation of suing governments. You don't want a reputation of fighting, and relationships important. And I didn't think anybody could beat our deal anyway, so I waited around for 5 months, however many months it was. I called Paul one day. I said, we found a buyer. Is the hotel still around? He said, it's a really fortunate thing you called, because we just took a close look at the other deal, and we're rejecting it. We brought in a buyer that's meeting a price quote 20% higher than what this gentleman says it's worth. How he tells me what it's worth when we're in an absorption period, if you believe in the city, that hotel could be doing $8, $9, $10 million. If you don't believe in this city, the hotel could do $3 or $4 million. I don't comment on that because I'm not a licensed appraiser, and I don't know who else does if they're not licensed appraisers. But the appraiser that was brought in to review this deal is Hotel Valuation Services, HVS. They are the largest hotel valuation company in the country. If you believe in and understand how headquarter hotels work, and you understand that you now have 900 rooms to sell in close proximity, and you believe your city's attractive. I mean, if you don't think much of your city, then you think they're going to choose to go to Des Moines instead. I look at Des Moines as a small brother to Omaha. They got the insurance companies and whatnot, but they're not. They're no Omaha. And I've worked with Denver, and I've worked with many other large cities. And it's more a matter of relationships than size. But with respect to this hotel and its value, an appraisal's coming in. You have to make a guess as to how the CVB and Mecca and the city will work together, and the new owner will work together. It's still a P3, no matter what you say, because you still have a room block agreement encumbering this property, right? And you still have the taxes, and the city's interest in making sure that it runs well. City has no obligation, and if these people go away because they overpaid for it, guess what? You get to keep the $30 million or whatever, $40 million, whatever the differential turns out to be determined by the, and you take it back like any other smart landlord. And when you take it back, because it's not worth that much, I'll be hopeful that the gentleman beside me is here still offering you $105 million. I could go on with more comments and more responses to the fallacies that were just expressed. I have no desire to unless you want to hear them.
Thank you. With that, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Festerson.
Thanks, Mr. President. And I appreciate the testimony here and some of the details being provided, because it's important we consider these details on such a complicated deal and a huge investment for taxpayers at the time. And I think it's perfectly appropriate that Mr. Malat's here. He's a constituent of mine, and this is a public hearing, and I think that's fine for anyone to express their opinions, both as proponents and opponents. But I also recognize the response there and appreciate that explanation from the law department and our consulting relationship from way early on and way back. And I do also share a bit of a history with this. I was in the mayor's office at the time when this started, so I understand some of the background here. And I think it's important to walk through a few of the financial details here too, because that is quite complicated. And I think it's important we demonstrate that we've gone through this and analyze this with those involved with the hotel entity here too. I went through some schedules of finances with Mr. Kratz this morning. In some cases, there are 8 or 10 different sources of funding involved in this, from different debt service funds to the word I learned at the time, tranches, that aren't familiar terms to most people. So I kind of want to walk through that just a little bit here with you, Mr. Kratz, if you can take the podium. And I do want to say, I know we knew this time would always come, and we'd hoped this time would come through that investment as a city, because it was a bit risky at the time and courageous at the time to build a hotel that we knew needed to happen to complement our convention center arena and the taxpayers' investment in that. And it was doubly courageous when we decided to expand it along the way, knowing that needed to happen, but was also additional taxpayer risk. So I want to compliment you and Mr. Peters, and I think Carol Ebden at the time were some of the original members, in addition to myself. I was only there for a couple years, thankfully. But you all have done a good job with this entity of managing this property for the city, and that was no small task, and definitely goes under other duties assigned for your job descriptions. So when we think about selling what's been called Omaha's living room, walk us through a little bit of the financing here. So originally, as we discussed this morning, it was approximately a $110 million bond issue that was refinanced into what became a $95 million bond issue. In 2017, approximately.
Okay, let me back up a little bit. We started off with about a $110 million bond issue in 2004, a little bit before then, 2002. Then in we refinanced that in about 2012 and got a lower rate. I believe it was 2012, maybe 14, somewhere in that ballpark. We then did a second bond issue for the expansion. We did that in 2010 and 11. That's a $37 million bond issue. So between the two, we have a $95 million bond issue and then a $37 million bond issue.
Mm-hmm. So that's what taxpayers are on the hook for right now.
Yes, sir.
And in this proposed agreement, what would happen to the $37 million is that would be paid off immediately. Some of that money coming from city debt service funds, but also $26.5 million worth of private funds.
Let me, I guess, clarify that.
Okay.
When we took out the $110 million bond issue, we created a number of reserves to absorb any risk that we thought we might have at the time. That was done on purpose. We also bought insurance, bond insurance, again, to cover ourselves in case there's any shortfall. Fortunately, there was never any shortfall. The way this is structured, the $37 million bond issue will be paid off with using those reserves, which amount to anywhere between $12 and $15 million. So Freestone, the new owner, will be putting in about $26 million of cash, and then using those reserves to help pay off the $37 million bond issue.
And when would that occur if this gets approved?
If it's approved, we expect to do due diligence, and we're already along in that process quite a ways. We're kind of shooting toward mid-August, late August. mid-August, hopefully, so pretty quickly for closing.
Okay. And then to the $95 million originally financed that is being paid off year to year, which amounts to, in some cases, $3 to $4 million a year.
Yep.
That still gets paid off over time by what would be the new entity, the new company ownership, who's in effect leasing the property until that time.
That's correct. They'll pay us a lease payment to cover the bond payments on the $95 million. That amounts to about $4.5 million a year. And if they miss a payment, we'll foreclose on them and get the hotel back and have saved a lot of money.
I think that was an important question that Councilman Jerem asked this morning, too. In the event that should occur, they try to back out or must back out financially, or they aren't holding the standards of our flagship or the standards we want of our four-star hotel, the city can, in fact, take it back.
The agreement has a standard that they must meet with respect to maintaining it and keeping it up. If they do miss a payment, and there's some other ideas of default or concepts of default, yes, the city can foreclose on it and take it back. We will have a deed of trust on this property, so foreclosure can happen fairly quickly.
And in that instance, the city could issue another bond to finance what would be then presumably a $3 or $4 million per year liability.
If there is, yeah, well, the hotel itself will make sufficient money to pay off the bond, the $95 million bond issue, even if the city takes it back. We could, if we wanted to, issue another bond issue if we felt a need to upgrade the hotel or to make changes and improvements if the hotel had deteriorated in time.
And what happens to the tax roll situation in those instances, property taxes and what's being paid on that?
Property taxes will continue. The hotel's been paying property taxes now for the last 14 years and will continue. This is a proprietary operation of the city, and as such, under state law, we have to pay taxes.
And also the entity itself, I think it's the Omaha Convention Hotel
City of Omaha Convention Hotel Corporation.
That sticks around during this amount of time?
That sticks around. It's essentially the overseer, the landlord of the property, and we will act, the city will act as landlord until Freestone decides to buy it, which they have the option to do, or until the end of the term.
And it stays in effect in case it would have to reestablish ownership?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other important part to note of this timing is when you own a hotel, you know you always have to reinvest in that hotel to stay up to standards and to continue to attract the business you need and to be competitive. And we think that next investment's coming pretty soon, next few years, which would require another $10 or $12 million probably of investment should this not go forward, right?
One of the motivating factors for the city to divest itself with the hotel was to eliminate future liability, and upgrading the hotel is one of those liabilities. Under the agreement, the buyers will do the soft goods, and we do the soft goods in 20, 21, 22, somewhere in that frame, and then the case goods, the hard goods, will be about 5 years later. And that's all within the industry standard. It's all required under the contract. And Bob mentions, yeah, actually, we did a little bit better. We got him to do it sooner than the Hilton standard, which was 14 years.
And speaking of Hilton, this remains at the Omaha Hilton for the duration of this agreement?
Not necessarily the duration, but the buyer wants to retain the Hilton corporate as a manager of the hotel. Now, there will be opportunities throughout that term to change if they so desire. I believe the agreement with Hilton, which they're negotiating at this point, will be a 20-year term. Then at the end of the 20 years, they could change if they so desire.
Okay. I appreciate you answering those questions. I think it's important we do walk through those things as we consider this. And in my opinion, this is the right time to be consummating this deal and to break even, as you might say, for taxpayers and move on, having been successful with this investment to get what we have today, which is a redeveloped riverfront and a successful convention center arena. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Thanks, Mr. President. First of all, I'll ignore any disparaging remarks that were made about commercial real estate brokers. I'm sure they were said in jest.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Secondly, Paul, if you could, as you sit down, I too, Mr. Festerson brought up some of these issues too, but I wanted to talk about, I think we had some discussions too about the Hilton and making sure the city stayed involved long enough to help drive the deal so that the new owners would have Hilton making those improvements sooner rather than later.
I might add a couple things. The city is going to stay involved. We are the landlord. Landlords want to protect their property, so I can guarantee you that there will be a number of us overseeing and making sure that the new entity keeps the hotel in its proper condition. Also, Hilton Corporate is going to give us what's called key money of 1.75 million. That's going to be used immediately to upgrade some interiors in the hotel on the first floor.
Okay. And then actually, I was just going to also say to Brad, I appreciate you coming down here and voicing your opinion, and that's why we have these public meetings so that we can invite commentary from both those in favor and opposed to it. And I appreciate you taking the time to come down and voice your opinion as well.
Well, if I could address one.
Sure, come on up. You'll have to do your name and address for the record again, too.
Brad Malott, 5107 Capitol Avenue, Omaha. Again, I'm impassioned with this thing, obviously. I've been very invested into it. I've always dealt in good faith with everybody we've dealt with. So I'm not trying to create enemies, although I'm sure I've pissed off Paul. That's not my intention. But I would like to add one thing. Our offer was considerably different than maybe as it was represented. The guy that Paul met with was not part of our organization. He was simply an investor inside the organization that was part of the team investing. He didn't represent us. We had the deal. In fact, we've kicked that guy out of the whole group because he brought up a stupid idea. Like, hey, let us own it for 6 months before we pay you. That's dumb. That was not what we presented to the city, and that's never been the intentions, and Paul knows that we've never dealt like that. Our group was actually intending to pay $41 million, not 37, because we were going to provide the penalty money if that was required. But we were also letting the city retain the 12 to $15 million of reserves. We had no intention of utilizing those reserves. So that's let's just call it a $12 million windfall for the city versus what's being talked about right now. We also had communicated amongst ourselves as to how we might sweeten the deal even further going forward. Maybe let the city participate in the future growth of the asset. But those are things that we never got to. But our deal did. So the city right now be walking away with $12 million, at least as we understand it, because we were not utilizing that, if that can be utilized. And it's possible it can't be, but, pardon me?
Okay, yeah, have your remarks to the body, not to the...
The point is, that's a lot of money.
Okay, all right.
So...
Thank you.
That's why I'm a little bit impassioned. Sorry.
Those are all I had, Mr. President.
Thank you. There are no further lights. Next item.
Non-action items, items 35 through 50, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on the agenda for consideration.
Motion to adjourn. Second, roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Festerson.
Yes.
Harding. Yes. Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 4:38.